Hello, learned and astonishingly attractive pupils. My name is Jairo Suarez, and I want to welcome you to Crash Course IO Psychology. Over the next few minutes together, we will learn about one woman who fought and continues to fight against discrimination in all forms. Mr. Suarez, is it Beyonce? Also, is this going to be on the test? Oh, me from the past, it's not Beyonce, and no, this is not going to be on the test. But the person we're going to be talking about today is just as much of a diva. Or at least she wanted to be. Today we will be talking about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the United States Supreme Court. More specifically, we will be talking about the qualities that make her an exceptional leader. First, let's discuss how different leadership approaches fit this remarkable woman. Justice Ginsburg is as much a product of her upbringing as she is her personality, so the trait and behavioral approaches function in tandem. Work on the Supreme Court lends itself most to the power and influence approach. This leadership approach relies on 5 bases for power: reward power, coercive power, legitimate power, referent power, and expert power. For a better understanding of this, let's go to the thought bubble. What's this? Instead of a thought bubble, you got Justice Ginsburg herself to talk about her experience as a lawyer and judge. Wow, Shayla, you really outdid yourself. Oh, right, guest speaker. I am a big fan, Your Honor.
Thank you, young man. I cherish the opportunity to share my experiences with the women and men of this fine country. I'll do the teaching from here on out. I have spent a great deal of time educating minds, you know.
All means, Justice Ginsburg, please take over today's lesson. It makes the most sense for you to talk about your legal work.
Oh, well, I am Chief Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and a little bit about me. I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1933. Don't do the math on that. I went to Cornell and got my undergrad for a Bachelor of Arts in Government, and then I went to Harvard Law for a couple of years before I transferred to Columbia, where I finished tied first for my class. Now, despite that, I struggled to get a job once I finished school, and...
Wait a minute. You finished first at Columbia Law School. How could you not find a job?
Oh, Mr. Suarez from the past, it was a different time. Not a law firm in New York would employ me. I struck out on 3 grounds. I was Jewish, I was a woman, and a mother. But I persisted, and my advice to you women and men of America is this: know your worth and your purpose. Now, like Mr. Suarez says, while working on the Supreme Court, it was integral to know who you are and what you fight for. This works towards the power and influence approach of leadership. And like he says, it relies heavily on the 5 bases of power: reward power, coercive power, legitimate power, referent power, and expert power. Now, I am in most favor of expert power. It is the most legitimate source of power and convinces people from a factual standpoint on why something is important and how to effectively enact a change. Therefore, these people do what they do for the sake of the good of others, or what we know as servant leadership. I think it does the best in creating commitment instead of just compliance and hopefully not resistance. Now, another piece of advice that I have for you guys is, no matter the circumstance, you must persist. You cannot blame your circumstance for a lack of performance or commitment to your work. This is a contingency approach of leadership becomes really important. Your effectiveness as a leader will depend on your situation, but that's why it's so crucial to be adaptable. You cannot become too reliant on one style of leadership. But you have to take in each team for what they are and who they are and work from there. Although I'm a very strong believer in listening and learning from others, and reacting in anger and annoyance will not advance one's ability to persuade. So that tends to make me very much a relationship-oriented leader. Now, my last piece of advice for you guys is this. Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. You need to take one step towards a big change instead of taking a big step for a big change, right? You gotta break it up into pieces because you can't shock the court into this huge change in social standards and policies.
Wise words, Justice Ginsburg. I understand that you also managed to have several discriminatory laws overturned during your tenure as the director of the ACLU's Women's Rights Program. Could you tell the class about that?
Of course. I stand by the notion that all artificial barriers to human flourishing needs to be removed from society. By this I mean discrimination. I worked for the American Civil Liberties Union during the 1960s and the 1970s to eliminate discrimination aimed at women specifically. Laws of the time kept women in a place beneath men, like I was saying about how I couldn't get a job despite being very, very intelligent. The reasoning behind it, however, was far different from laws that allow race discrimination. Race discrimination quickly came to be seen as evil and totally unacceptable. Gender discrimination was justice. The men who passed these laws insisted that women need to stay in their place because it was safer and healthier for them. Well, I'm 86 years old and I can still do 20 push-ups a day. This is false, plain and simple. I fought these unjust laws using the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. This clause grants equal protection under the law to all people. Laws can be found in violation of the clause if they are unreasonable, fail to relate to an important government function, or draw suspect classification to a certain group. Surprise, buddy boy, the patriarchy violates all three of these conditions. I rest my case. Meeting adjourned.
Alrighty then. Thank you, Justice Ginsburg. That's all the time we have for today's lesson. Remember, class, stay curious.